Hi everyone, this is Ekta from Studio Bodhi and welcome back to our second video. Now I know it's taken us a bit of time to come up with the second video, but that's because I was debating and contemplating on what tutorial I should be posting next. And then I decided that instead of actually doing a tutorial for an artwork, why don't I take a step back and address one of the most commonly asked questions that's been coming my way in the last couple of years on Instagram and Facebook, which is regarding my art supplies. So I keep getting a lot of messages and comments on my posts asking me what kind of art supplies do I use, what kind of paints, brushes, primer, varnish, and anything else that's needed have I been using in my artwork. So in today's video, I will be basically talking about what I call as a basic starter kit that somebody who's either new to acrylic art or has never done acrylic artwork before will need to explore and experiment with acrylic art. So the first product that I'd like to talk about, and which I think personally is very important and a key part of any acrylic artwork, is what we call as the Gesso primer, Gesso or Gesso as you might want to call it. Now this comes in various sized bottles and also different consistencies, but essentially most art stores across the world should have some bottle of Gesso primer. Now a lot of you who have never worked on acrylic artwork before may not know what this is. Now, primer is also actually a substance or a material or a product which is used even when you apply makeup. So this essentially means that it's a coat that you put before you actually paint on any surface, and this works like a base or a primer on any product before you actually start painting with acrylic paints on it. What this does is it gives a great base, and it makes sure that when you put colors or acrylic paints on the product, they remain on the surface and they don't get soaked in, especially when you're working on products like canvas. It's very easy for the acrylic paints to get soaked into the canvas material. But what this does is actually it creates a good base on top of the canvas or the paper. I even use it when I paint on wood or on glass or even metal. And this makes sure that when you put the paint on top of the primer, the paint holds well, it does not get soaked in, and it gives a great finish. Now, the second product that I'd like to talk about is a very simple product, and it's not exclusive to acrylic paint. It is for any kind of artwork, which is what we call as color palettes. Now, these are again made of plastic in most cases. You also have them in wood for other types of artwork, like for oil painting. I use these very simple plastic ones, and you can see I have a bigger size which is already used, and this is a slightly newer one. Now, there is no qualification or a specification for these. You can just pick any that suits your requirements. If you are not going to be doing too much artwork, you can pick up slightly smaller size. I usually pick up smaller sizes, but with multiple dips, just so that I tend to use a lot of colors at the same time. So it's easier for me to work with a lot of colors. But if you are again new and a first timer and you're not sure if you're going to do too much painting, even a smaller size should work for you. The third thing which I would want to talk about is what I consider as one of the most important parts of any art supply kit, which is obviously the paints. Now, as you can see, this is a well-used box, and I have been using this for the last 1.5 years, and it has worked pretty well for me. Now, before I get into the details, I just want to share the brands that I have used with you, which is one of the most important questions and key questions that comes my way. What brand of acrylic paints do you recommend? Now, I have personally worked with 3 brands, and I have been very happy with all 3. So those are the ones I would recommend. This one is actually Daler and Rowney. This is a UK based brand, and they have a very popular UK based brand, and they work not just with acrylic paints, but they do make all kinds of paints, and they are international brand and are usually available, to my knowledge, in most countries. The other very popular and a good quality brand is Winsor & Newton, which again is an international brand, UK based brand, and it offers all kinds of paints. Now, the second most important thing that you need to keep in mind, other than the brand, the third brand that I have used is actually an Indian brand which is called Fevicryl, and for this I have used only specific types of colors, that is the gloss colors, which I use for specific artwork. Now, other than the actual brand that you choose, what's important to remember is that if you notice here, there is a word called graduate here. Now, most of these international brands will come with two qualities of paints. One is what they call as the professional or the graduate variety, and the second is what they call as the student variety. Now, usually student variety is for somebody who's just starting out or is learning and is not looking to do professional work, and hence can do with a slightly lower quality. And graduate or professional variety is for, as the name suggests, professionals who need a higher quality paint, and hence choose the graduate variety. Now, I know I'm talking about a starter kit here and I'm talking about people who are new, but even then I recommend that the experience of painting is much better if you go with the graduate or the professional variety. I've always only used the graduate or the professional variety, and I can distinctly see the difference in the quality. The essential difference between a graduate and a student variety is in terms of quality. Of course, the pigmentation is different. It's a higher quality and hence slightly more expensive. And one of the other differences is that the color choices or the color options, or the shades available in the graduate or the professional variety are slightly more as compared to a student variety. And in artist language, this is what we call as the hue. So the shades, the hues is definitely much better. So even though I know that this is a starter kit I'm talking about, I would still recommend that you choose fewer colors but choose the graduate or the professional variety. Now, as you can see, this is a box of 24, and I'm just going to open and share with you because I want you to see what the tubes look like. As you can see, this is a well-used tube. I have some tubes which are almost open because I use them a lot. But just to give you an idea, this is what a tube looks like. It's made of, I think, some kind of metal or plastic, and you can just squeeze the tube out, the paint out as much as you need. Now, for somebody who's just starting out, I would not recommend a box of 24. I would recommend that if you are new and just experimenting and you're not sure how much you're going to paint, then just pick up a set of 5, 6 or 8, or you even get bottles like these in some of these brands, and you can just pick up specific colors that you need, maybe just primary colors and 1 or 2 other colors to start your work with. See how you like it, see how your artwork goes, see how much you enjoy it, and based on your requirement, you can start increasing your kit after that. Now, other than this box, usually available in most brands, you can get it in 12 or 8 or 24, etc. In most of these brands, you also get bigger bottles like these. Now, as you can see, there are 2 different packaging, but essentially the quantity is much bigger, and these are for individual colors. Now, I usually buy these bigger bottles only for the colors that I either run out of and I know that I will be needing more of. So white, for example, is a color that we all use a lot. Yellow is a very popular color for a lot of artwork that I do. So I have picked up bigger bottles because I know I will be doing justice to them. But if you're not sure, and if you're starting out, and if you don't know if you're going to paint a lot, I would not recommend these bottles. I would recommend just a small, box of tubes, and start with it, see how it goes, and if you're really enjoying your artwork, then you can obviously add more colors as you go along. Now, after this, I would like to talk about one of the most important part, and what I call as the soldiers of any artwork, which is the brushes. Now, there are a huge range of brushes available in the market, and it's very confusing when you enter an art store, because for different kinds of color, acrylic paints and oil paints and watercolors, there's different types of brushes. Now, what I have done is I have simply categorized these brushes, just for a very layman understanding, into 3 broad categories. One is what I call as the flat brush, and I will show it to you up close. These are, as you can see, they are flatter in terms of the way they look. And they come again in different sizes. There's a thinner one. And the second grouping, again, based on purely how they look, I'm not using any technical terms here, is what we call as the round tip brushes. And these are, as you can see, round. And I will explain to you the uses of these different brushes, but just to show you the categories. And third is what I call as the fine tip or the outline brushes. And again, you can see the brushes here are extremely fine. It's very, very thin and very fine. Now, obviously, the purpose for all these three types of brushes is different. Now, these brushes are typically used to paint either the base. So when I'm applying a base coat of a paint on a bottle or on a canvas, and where the surface area is larger, I would typically use the flat brush because the finish is much better. And obviously, because of the flat bristles, the area of paint I can cover at one stroke is much bigger. So in most situations, you would use the flat brush to apply a base or paint bigger surfaces, or if you need a certain stroke where you need a certain look. So that's what I would apply a flat brush. The round tip brushes is what I typically use when I'm actually painting inside a design. So when I have a pattern to paint and I have different colors and it's a smaller surface area and I want to make a flower or I want to make a leaf, that's when I would use these brushes. So it makes sure that I don't paint outside my design and it gives a very neat and clean finish. The third and the most, what I believe is one of the most important brushes are what I call as the fine tip brushes or the outline brushes. Now, these brushes typically will be in, again, in art language in the range of 000 or 000. There are numbers to these brushes. So usually the outline brushes are numbered from 0, again, depending on the brand, they could be triple zeros, or 2 zeros, or zeros, or even 1 and 2. These brushes, as the name suggests, are basically meant for doing very fine artwork. Usually when you're doing outlines or when you're doing small detailing in any of your artwork, that's when you would use, they have very fine bristles, as you can see, and they do tend to get spoiled faster than the other brushes because of the fine hair, and you have to be extremely careful in maintaining. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about as far as brushes is concerned is the brands. Now, practically every art store will have international and local brands. So depending on which country you are, you could either pick up an international brand, again, Winsor & Newton, Daler and Rowney, these are all international brands which also make good quality brushes. Or if you have some good local brands which you are aware of or which you have been recommended, you could also experiment with that. The only two things that I'd like you to keep in mind, which is very important when you select a brush, is I would recommend that whatever brand you choose, just make sure that the brushes are synthetic fiber, because these are much better quality, the finish is much better, the experience of artwork will be much better, the finish is much smoother with synthetic fibers. And also, the ferrule, which is this one, should be should be of a good quality, ideally brass, because what happens a lot of times is when you use brush for a long time, and this is my own personal experience, is that this tends to come out and then your brush is damaged. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about as far as brushes is concerned is the brands. Now, practically every art store will have international and local brands. So depending on which country you are, you could either pick up an international brand, again, Winsor & Newton, Daler and Rowney, these are all international brands which also make good quality brushes. Or if you have some good local brands which you are aware of or which you have been recommended, you could also experiment with that. The only two things that I'd like you to keep in mind, which is very important when you select a brush, is I would recommend that whatever brand you choose, just make sure that the brushes are synthetic fiber, because these are much better quality, the finish is much better, the experience of artwork will be much better, the finish is much smoother with synthetic fibers. And also, the ferrule, which is this one, should be should be of a good quality, ideally brass, because what happens a lot of times is when you use brush for a long time, and this is my own personal experience, is that this tends to come out and then your brush is damaged. So the next product that I want to talk about, which I believe again is a very important part of any acrylic artwork, especially if you're working on surfaces like wood or metal or glass, is what I call as the varnish. Now, varnish is nothing but a transparent or a gloss or a matte polish which you apply once you have finished your artwork on the product on top of the acrylic paint to essentially protect and seal your acrylic art, acrylic paint. What can happen with acrylic paints over a period of time if it's not varnished is that, and also if the quality is not, let's say, a graduate quality paint, it can fade away. The colors can start wearing down, and this is, we're talking about long term, not in a few months, but a longer duration of maybe 5 years or plus, etc. Why we use varnish is essentially it works as a protective coating on top of your acrylic paints, and it makes sure that it gives a certain shine and a glow if you are using a gloss varnish. And also it kind of puts a protective coating and a layer around your acrylic paint so it does not either get damaged, scratched easily, or even lose its vibrancy. Now, again, varnish is one of the most commonly available products in most art stores, and varnish can be multi-purpose or multi-product use. You get varnishes which can be used on different surfaces, or you also get varnishes which are meant for particular surfaces, like only for glass or only for wood. So depending on what you're working on and what your needs are, you could go for a multi-product varnish, or you could go for specific products that you're working on. This is also what I call as a gloss varnish. Now, you get again varnishes in different categories. You have the gloss finish or you have the matte finish. I work a lot on other surfaces like metal and glass and wood, and I prefer a gloss varnish which gives a bit of a shine and a little more cleaner and more fresher look to my products. This is actually a transparent, so I know it looks a bit white, but when you apply it, it actually gives a completely transparent shine to the products that I'm working on. And what I have realized is that every time I use this, the vibrancy of the colors immediately gets brighter. So the colors that I have used look a notch brighter after the varnish is applied. So it actually enhances the colors, the acrylic colors, once it's applied. Now, the last bit on this is that varnish, I have used varnish in two types of packaging. One is a spray and one is in this bottle format. Now, personally, both have their pros and cons. A spray varnish basically comes like a can which has a spray on top, and it's much easier to spray, and you don't have to touch it, and it's just easier to use. However, I have also realized that when I use a spray varnish, often it tends to drip when I'm spraying it. The gloss varnish, on the other hand, has the liquid varnish, like this in a bottle, is typically used by applying it with a flat brush, something like this, on the product, and just like you would use acrylic paint essentially. And so this takes a slightly more time, but I find this slightly more easier to use and also a little more clean looking and a neat looking finish, simply because it doesn't drip. Of course, sometimes you can see the brush strokes that you have used if you don't apply it nicely. So again, there is no right varnish. Depending on what your requirements are, you can pick a smaller bottle or a larger bottle. You can pick up a spray or in a liquid bottle like this. You can pick up a gloss, matte, or again varnishes which are multi-purpose, used for more than one product, or varnishes which are meant only for a single product. So while we've covered most of the bigger items, your art supply kit is not complete without some of these other ingredients that I'm going to talk about. Now, when you are drawing in any artwork, you would either draw it physically with a hand, or you would like to trace a design. And for that, there are two things which are very important. You need to make sure that you have something called as a butter paper or a transparent paper like this, which is available in most art stores. And this is essentially used for you to copy a design. So you draw a design either directly on this, or you draw it on a paper and trace it on this. And this is important for you if you want to copy a design on any of your products instead of drawing it out by yourself. To actually do the tracing, you also will need something called as a tracing paper. Now, this is what a tracing paper looks like. Coors is one of the most popular brands for these papers, and tracing papers comes in, I think, different colors. I have primarily used only two, the yellow and the black or the dark blue. Now, the reason I have two is because depending on what my background color is, so if I have a black or a darker color as my base color, then I would use the yellow paper for tracing so that I can see the design clearly. Whereas if I have a white color or a very light color, then I would probably use a darker color. Again, these are easily available in any art stores and are not expensive at all. Usually they will come in a booklet of 10 or 15, and one would last you easily for a couple of your designs. So this is definitely a must-have in your art kit if you want to be in a position to be able to copy or trace a design that you don't want to draw. Lastly, and not the least, now this product that I'm going to talk about is not an absolute essential, but highly recommended. But it is essential if you are looking to do painting on acrylic paper or acrylic canvas. So I usually keep what I call as acrylic paper pads. These again are easily available in most art stores. This is again from the brand Daller and Rowney, and this comes in various sizes. This is a notepad which basically has acrylic papers. So these papers are actually designed or are made specifically for acrylic artwork. So if you want to do acrylic art on paper, then it's a great idea to have buy one or two of these pads in different sizes, and you can just rip off one paper at a time and paint in them. So these are compact, easy to use, and they are meant for acrylic artwork. So the output and the finish of your artwork will be much better if you use acrylic paper than any other normal paper. Similarly, you also have what we call as acrylic canvas pads. So similar to acrylic paper, you also have canvas which you will need for acrylic artwork if you want to paint a canvas. Now these are not framed canvases, these are just roll-up canvases, but they come in the form of a notepad, and you can just open these, and they are made of fiber, so you can just rip these open once you painted it, and you can get them framed. And you will obviously need to apply a primer coat on this before you use it, but personally I find these much easier to use and store rather than frame canvases if I'm doing a lot of work, because it's easy to roll up and transport. So this is the basic starter kit that you would need if you're looking to actually start out as an acrylic artist, or to just have some art therapy and have some acrylic art fun. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope this has been helpful to at least some of you who had questions about art supplies and are looking to start out. And if this video has helped you go out shopping for your acrylic art kit, then do let us know. Let us know what worked for you and what didn't. And if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to our channel and press the like button, and let us know in your comments what you liked about this, what you didn't, and also what tutorial or video you'd like to see next. So till our next video, goodbye and happy painting.